last ones on this sheet are graphing your systems of inequalities. When you graph your system of inequalities on Alex, make sure you do it on your paper first, because when you shade, you only want to shade the section where they intersect, and so you don't want extra shading on your graph. And so I'm just going to do this on my paper, and then I'll erase the stuff I don't want. But on Alex, make sure you do it on your paper and then put it on Alex. So again, I'm going to graph my inequalities. I'm just going to use the y-intercept and the slope to get my lines on there, and then we'll go from there. So on these ones, y is greater than or equal to negative 3x plus 2. 2 is my y-intercept. My slope is negative 3, so 1, 2, 3 down and over 1. It's not quite drawing where I want it. 1, 2, 3 down and over 1. We get the idea. My line is going to be solid, if I could draw straight. Now normally, if I were going to do the shading, I would say y is greater than my line, so I would be going up from my y-intercept. So I'm just going to lightly shade this to remind myself, oh, that's the side I would have shaded. Over here, my y-intercept is at 5. My slope is 2, so up 2 over 1, up 2 over 1. This time my line should be dashed, and so I'm just going to draw it that way. Again, on Alex, you have to draw it solid and change it to a dashed line, but I'm just going to make it dashed here. Again, I am shading greater than. So looking at this line in green, here's my y-intercept. If I go greater than, I'm actually shading this side of my line. But on Alex, what you want to shade is where those two things intersect each other. So since I shaded up and up, it intersected in this little V right between my two lines. So that's the spot that I want to shade. So on Alex, I shouldn't see any shading over on this side, and I shouldn't see the shading over on this side. I should just see the shading in the middle where those two things intersected each other. Only I erased part of my line, so I better get my line back on there. So I'm going to have my solid line here, my dashed line here. I shaded above and above, so I ended up on that top section. Now if these are both greater thans, should end up in that little triangle on the top. If they're both less thans, I'm going to be in the triangle on the bottom. If one's a greater and one's a less, it's one of the two sides, but you really don't know until you do the testing. So you have to check those out and find out for sure. We're going to do a couple of those. So number 29 starts off with y is less than or equal to 2x minus 9. My y-intercept is at negative 9. My slope is 2, so up 2 over 1, up 2 over 1, up 2 over 1, as far as you want to go. This one's going to have a solid line because it does have the equal to. I'm shading less than, so I'm shading below that line, so just keeping in mind that that's the part that I would shade. Here, my y-intercept is at 4. My slope is negative 3, so down 1, 2, 3 over 1. Down 1, 2, 3 over 1. Down 1, 2, 3 over 1. This one's going to be dashed because it doesn't have the equal to bar. So I have my dashed line. On this one, I am shading greater than. So if I were shading greater than this line, I would end up shading this side over here. So again, you can see on this one, what I actually end up shading is this part over here to the right between my two lines. So I really don't have any shading on here, and I really don't have the shading up here. Again, my line wanted to erase on me, but when you graph it, you're going to put your two lines on there and only shade the part where they intersect. Since one was a less and one was a greater, I knew it was one of the two sides. This one ended up being over here on the right. Last one. I know this was kind of a long homework paper, but there was only 10 topics, so it would have been silly to put 5 and 5 because you needed to do more than that. And so, graphing. My y-intercept is -7. My slope is -2. So down 2 over 1, down 2 over 1. Remember, a -2 could be a negative over a negative, or it could be a positive over a negative. I could have went up 2 and back 1, right? Up 2 minus 1, 2 over -1, it's the same thing. Again, this is going to be a solid line because it does have the equal to underneath. I'm shading greater, so if I'm going greater, I end up shading this part of my line. On this one, my y-intercept is at +7. My slope is 4. 1, 2, 3, 4 over 1. Again, if I want to put more dots and I can't go up and to the right, the opposite of that would be going down and to the left. -4 over -1. So 1, 2, 3, 4 down and back 1. 1, 2, 3, 4 down and back 1. This one's going to have a dashed line. And figuring out my shading, I'm shading less than this line. So less than this line technically would be all this stuff over here. But I just want where those two things intersect. So again, they intersect over here to the right side of my line. I would shade all of this part here. And so you won't see the shading that's down here underneath those two lines, or this part that was above those two lines, just the part over there to the right where the two things intersect. All right, that is the end of chapter 8.